Hi, I'm Brian from Simply Brian Enterprises and welcome to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be taking a second look at the homework solution for TopTechBoy's Raspberry Pi Pico series, lesson number 15. In lesson number 15, Paul brought us through the idea of using for loops and lists, and in my previous video, I showed you my solution to taking input from the user via the keyboard, populating lists, going through for loops, and displaying colors on the Raspberry Pi Pico. Um, since then, though, I've been looking at using dictionaries instead of lists, and there's a couple others out there in the Top Tech Boy class that have been using dictionaries now for the last few lessons, and I've been somewhat averse to using dictionaries because I've found a couple of limitations that don't exist with lists, and I've kind of shied away from using dictionaries and favored lists. However, I started playing with dictionaries a little bit more and started to find some answers to my frustrations with dictionaries, and I've learned to like them a lot more. And so I wanted to do a follow-up video showing what lesson 15 would look like if I would use dictionaries instead of lists. Now I'm going to be doing, that's not the right view, I'm going to be doing a lot of work here on the command line on the Pi Pico. And so I'm going to be doing some copying and pasting. It's a lot easier if I copy and paste rather than try to type freeform on camera. I'm guaranteed to mess it up. So the first thing I want to do is just do a quick intro to defining a dictionary. So I'm going to pop this over here. And what I've done is I've defined this dictionary called colors, and I've included a red object, a green object, and a blue object, and I've given them a value. So in the case of red, I've fed it a string, whereas in green and blue, I've fed it a list. Now, the difference between that, I'll just show this quick. If I want to pull up, let's say I want to retrieve the values for red, it's going to return the string value that I gave it. If I want to return the value for blue, it's going to return my list that I fed it. Now the difference is, and Paul showed this a little bit when doing things with lists, if I want to grab element number 2, so we do 0, 1, 2, if I want to grab element number 2 of red, I would grab 0, right? No, I wouldn't, because red being a string, I'm going to grab 0, 1, 2. I'm going to grab that character right there. I'm not going to grab the whole section. We obviously wanted to grab that. So of course the way we get around that is by using a list. I'm going to do the exact same thing using blue. And in this case, again, I'm just taking the second element, but now I return the value of 255, which is what I expected to grab because that's in a list, not a string. So that's kind of things that we've already seen. But now let's talk about some things that are dictionary specific. Let's say I want to loop through a dictionary and I want to see all of the values in a dictionary. Well, if I do this, just say I'm going to grab an individual color in colors and print the color, you can see I'm getting blue, red, and green, my indexes. I'm not getting the actual values that are assigned to it. You'll also notice, and this is where we start to get to my frustrations on using dictionaries, you'll also notice that the order is seemingly random. I put red, green, blue when I created the dictionary, red, green, blue, but when I do a loop through it, I get blue, red, green. It's a different order. So that's kind of interesting. Let's try using a larger dictionary and we'll see a little more of the oddities that I'm talking about. So the first dictionary, I included a string and a list. Well, I started to think, if I can put a string in a dictionary and I can put a list in a dictionary, could I put a dictionary in a dictionary? And as it turns out, yes, you can. So for my first element, red, I've actually created a new dictionary. And you see I've got an element named R, G, and B, and I'm putting in integers. And the same is true for green, blue, cyan. Now when I get down to magenta, I decide to do something a little different. I'm still creating a dictionary, but instead of putting in integers, I'm putting in strings. 255 is a string value, 0 is a string value, 255 is a string value. And I just wanted to do that to show you a little bit of the differences of what happens when you do that. So let's pull up let's say that I want to grab the RGB or the red value for red. So I'm saying grab the color red, red LED value, and we get 255. That's what we would expect. Let's do the same for orange. And when I do that, you notice I get 64, but it's returned with these single quotes because it's a string. And if I come down here and do the same for white, where I'm going to pull up the value of blue for white, again, I get, instead of an integer, I get a string because that's what I put in. Now, of course, I can work around this by doing simply wrapping it with an int statement like so. So I can take my white, my blue value of the white color, convert it to an integer, and we see now I get an integer of 224. So that's just kind of some simple, straightforward understanding of how to store things in dictionaries, how to pull them back out, and seeing that we can do different data types. So frustration number one I have with dictionaries is that even though I can loop through them, as you saw above, I did a for loop for coloring colors. I can't do them numerically. There's not a numerical index. So if I tried something like this, which is perfectly logical in a list, so I'm going to try to bring back basically the first element in colors, I get an error because there's no numerical index on a dictionary. And that always kind of frustrated me. So I can come in here, and again, I'll show now with the new colors array that I have, or the colors dictionary that I have. See, once again, I can do a list of the indexes. And again, they're in some strange order: cyan, magenta, yellow, blue, not even close to the order I put them in. So this has always been the frustration. I can't do a numerical loop through. I can't do like a for in range with a dictionary because everything has to be accessed by index name. You cannot do it numerically. Well, at least that's what I thought. Then I learned about the list function. As the name would suggest, the list function takes any object, any value, and converts it to a list. So what happens if we try to convert this dictionary to a list? Well, we get the output that we had here. We get our indexes, but we get them as items in a list. Well, isn't that handy? Because if I wanted to do a numerical value now of an entire dictionary, what if I did, instead of that colors 0, what if I do a list colors 0? And just like that, now I get an index back. So I can now numerically search or numerically list out a dictionary if my program requires it. Then if I want to actually retrieve the value, so let's say I want to retrieve this value for what's stored in list item 0, dictionary cyan, what happens if I take that out? Now I can actually pull out, here's my dictionary. So here's my color, cyan. Here's my dictionary value, blue, red, and green for that particular color. Then if we want to get even fancier, we can actually do a print statement. And we can take our list colors 0, so we get our index name with the value of colors list colors 0. So we get the name of the index, and then we get the value of the index as well as the dictionary. And just like that, we now get a printout of cyan, and here's my dictionary values. And now if I keep going down, I can do one better. Now that I can do things numerically, I can actually start to build some processing around it in a numerical sense, not just a dictionary sense. So I can do, just like I can with any other object, I can do a length, excuse me, and it tells me that the dictionary contains 8 elements. So if I wanted to do a for loop, if I wanted to loop through this thing in a for loop, just like I do a list, I can do in range length colors. So this is going to give me a range from 0 to 8, which means it's actually going to count from 0 to 7, step 1. And just like above, now we're printing out the index name and the value that's stored in that index. So now I get cyan, and here's my dictionary, magenta, here's my dictionary, and on and on and on through the array. So I just did a for loop numerically through a dictionary which does not have a numerical index. So I thought that was a pretty cool feature. It is kind of a corner case in programming. There's not a lot of times that you'd want to do it numerically, but I did hit some obstacles back in the Pi class where I wanted to go through a dictionary numerically instead of alphabetically, and I could not do it, or at least I didn't believe I could do it. So now we can take that a step further, and we can do something like this. So now I'm going to loop through, I'm going to list out my color index, but in this case, I'm actually going to go into the dictionary and I'm going to grab red, green, and blue individually. You'll notice up here, just like before, the output of a dictionary is sort of an arbitrary output. It's blue, red, green for all of these values, not red, green, blue like we would expect. So in this way, I can actually force the output to be RGB. So here we go. I've got cyan, red is 0, green is 255, blue is 255, etc. through there. And again, that's all done numerically, which is really cool because that gives us that list ability of doing numeric indexing in a dictionary. So that was kind of the first thing that I wanted to accomplish with the dictionary. So I was really excited to find that out and find that I can use a very list-like function with a dictionary. The second thing I wanted to go over is if I look at, this is my lesson 15 program that I did, and I did a validation from the user where I said, I want to know if the user puts in a color, does that color actually exist in my list? And in order to do that, I have to load the entire list and I have to go through step by step. If the user inputs orange, okay, item number 0, orange, no. Item number 1, orange, no. Item number 2, orange, no. Item number 3, 4, 5, 6, ooh, 6 is orange, yes, okay. So now I can append that to my user colors list and then set the valid color value so it goes to the next color. I wasn't sure how to do that with a dictionary. I wasn't sure how to loop through the whole dictionary and check it. Well, as it turns out, we don't have to. We can do a very simple question of, does it exist? So I'm just going to search the colors dictionary to see, does red exist? And it says true, just like that. Okay, what if I pick a color that doesn't exist in my dictionary? False. Perfect. All right. This is Python. Is it case sensitive? Let's find out. Is it case sensitive? Absolutely. Uppercase red doesn't exist. What if I force my input value to lower and compare it that way? Can I do a red.lower? Absolutely. So true. So now instead of having to go through that whole loop, I just ask it, does this color exist in colors? And if yes, it returns true. If no, it returns false. And then I can write my code around that. So I thought that was pretty slick. So I'm going to expand this back out and I'm going to head back to my revised lesson 15 program and walk through this briefly and then run it and hopefully wrap up this video shortly. So I'm doing the same imports as before, setting my frequency and my brightness. And then when we come down here to set up my pins, I'm going to import these as a dictionary instead of a list. So I've got my pin LEDs. My R pin is 10, green is 11, B is 12, stored as integers. Then I come down here and set up my PWMs, R, G, and B. Now notice I'm using R, G, and B up here as integers in the pins, but I'm using them as PWM objects in this PWM LEDs dictionary. That's okay because these dictionaries are relative to their parent dictionary. That makes sense. So the R here is pin LEDs R. PWM LEDs R is a completely different object. So even though these have the same variable name or the same index name of R, they're actually two different dictionaries because they're embedded in other dictionaries. I hope that makes some sense. And then I just cycle through my PWM LED and PWM LEDs, set up my frequency and value. Now it's important to note, this is not going to be in order. It's not going to do it in RGB order. It's going to do it in whatever order it decides. But in this case, I don't care. I just want it to make sure it gets to all three. So that for loop is just fine. Here I'm setting up my colors dictionary. Same thing I did in the command window. The difference is in this case, I'm not using any strings. I'm doing them all as integers because programmatically that's the right thing to do. I just wanted to demonstrate what happens when you use strings inside of a dictionary versus an integer. So now I come into my while loop. I'm going to set up a list, and I'll show you what that list is for the user colors. And once again, we're going to prompt the user, how many colors would you like? 0 is an exit. Anything greater than 0, we're going to walk through and say, okay, let's validate that color. Enter your color number. Here's our special blues. Right here is the change in code that we can do with dictionaries. Instead of looping through the whole dictionary, I just ask, does that exist? Does it exist? And if it does, we append it to the user color array and we set the valid color. Now this is important because all I'm doing is appending that index value. So if the user types in green, we validate that green exists. I'm going to put green in the list. I'm not going to go and enumerate all the values, and I'll show you why. It's actually a little shortcut in code. Again, we do the if it's invalid, keep looping back. So now we come down here, we have our list built of the valid colors, and we're going to start walking through them. The other reason I wanted to use a list here is I wanted to keep them in order that the user entered them. If I put them in a dictionary, I'd get some sort of out of sequence thing, and the user wouldn't be happy that they don't come out in order. And this is just doing a simple print statement. But what I'm doing is I'm taking colors, user color.lower. I'm actually passing the value of user color, the one that I'm on, the index value that I'm on. So in this case, I'd be index 0, whatever the user put in first. And I'm saying pull that from colors, and then from that, pull the value of red, pull the value of green, pull the value of blue. So that way I don't have to keep writing the same value over and over and over. It's already stored in the dictionary. I just have to look it up. Now I'm going to do the same thing here because now I'm going to actually do the math on these values. So I'm going to take that user color value red, user color value green, user color blue, and now I'm going to do all my exponential math like you've seen before, convert it to a percentage, do the exponential math, write it back as a duty cycle. And when I do that, I'm going to call again this PWLED's dictionary RGB. They don't have to be in numerical order, they have to be in the order I specify. So it's simple enough for me to just specify RG and B. Notice I didn't have to set up a whole bunch of variables again like I did in the first iteration of lesson 15 because the dictionary stores it all for me. And then after we loop through that, we turn them off to 0 and print a null statement. So let's run this program really quickly. All right, how many colors would you like? I'm going to do 3. And again, I'm going to do kind of some funky mixed case stuff. Green and orange. This is why I don't type on camera, you see. And now we've got yellow, green, orange, and you can see again, I'm storing them in the way the user entered them. So when they put in those mixed case values, it displays them again, and I'm going to hit 0 to exit. So I think that got a little long-winded, but I do hope you enjoy this video. I've certainly enjoyed messing around with dictionaries and learning some new things with them. And I'm certainly going to be using dictionaries in upcoming videos. So I'm really wanting to get this video out there so you can kind of see my logic in using dictionaries, and I'm certainly going to show these going forward. If you like this video, be sure to hit like and subscribe below, and be sure to check out my upcoming video on lesson 16. I'm finally catching up on homework. Look forward to seeing you there. I'm Brian from Simply Brian Enterprise. Thank you for watching.